Despite more than 140 women claiming abuse at the hands of Nasser, the case isn't receiving the same attention or the same kind of attention as the Jerry Sandusky molestation scandal at Penn State. Some people believe it's because Nasser's victims are girls and women, while Sandusky's were all boys. My next guest agrees. Nancy Hogshead-Makar is an Olympic gold medalist, and she's also a civil rights attorney who has founded a legal advocacy organization for girls and women in sports. Thank you so much for joining me from Jacksonville, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Michaela.
So you are of the mind that the Nasser victims just are not getting the kind of coverage, and the cases aren't getting the kind of coverage, save for this network and for this show, by the way,
yes,
that the Sandusky trial led to. Why do you believe that?
Well, I think you can look at numerous examples across lots of different platforms of when boys are molested, there is a really quick response. When girls are molested, it's, I mean, a good example is, imagine if Roy Moore had been molesting boys at age 14, 15, rather than girls. Would the response have been the same?
In terms of the Olympic movement, in terms of Michigan State University, I know Michigan State University. Oh, you lost your ear. I know that Michigan State University, there has been. I understand that Michigan State University has been receiving some pressure. There's an attorney general that is calling for an independent organization there. But in terms of USA Gymnastics, I mean, what are we hearing about the changes? Has there been wholesale change within the Olympic organization or USA Gymnastics?
There are changes that are happening. It's not just because of Larry Nasser, but this issue of sexual abuse in club and Olympic sports is actually very similar to the kind of abuse that happens in the entertainment industry. They're not employees, they're not students, so they don't really have the same kind of legal protection that me as a over 50-year-old woman who is employed by somebody else would have. Right? It seems a little weird. And the Olympic Committee has taken the path that they don't owe a legal duty that extends out there to that kid. It's just not their job.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, it's shocking to even think about that.
Are we naive to believe that they would not be looking after these young people that are in their care?
That has been in court. Their legal position is that they don't owe a legal duty, that it's the club's job, it's the police's job, it's the parents' job, it's somebody else's, but it's not theirs. And, the Indy Star and Will Hobson at the Washington Post have done a phenomenal job of highlighting just exactly what their legal posture has been. So they've been very reluctant to take complaints of sexual abuse of one of their coaches and then to do something about it. So imagine these are separate businesses that are different. They're not part of a school. There's no general counsel position. There's no insurance. There's no, if you wanted to go to court, there's really nothing to go after. Lawyers kind of figure that out. There's really nothing I can do here for this victim. And so the Olympic Committee has said, if the less we do, the less liable in civil court that we're going to be. So they've protected their assets at the expense of athletes. And the person who's been doing that the most is Scott Blackman.
And Scott Blackman, you've actually dealt with him. He's part of USA Gymnastics, correct? Or is he part of the Olympic Committee?
No, he's the head of the United States Olympic Committee.
Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, given the Me Too movement, given now the Time's Up movement, given the fact that this is a conversation we're having nationally, you probably have a word of caution and some advice as a former Olympic athlete yourself, and also now as a civil rights attorney. There are parents out there watching who have talented young women in their homes that they want them to fulfill their dreams of Olympic gold or silver or bronze. But a word of caution for them. What would you advise?
Sure. Well, first of all, the International Olympic Committee did this great research showing that the more elite the athlete, the more likely they are to be abused with somebody from within their group. So, we know what the risks are. I say start young and let kids know that they have autonomy over their own body. So, you know, I've got young kids, and I tell, you know, I've been telling them that they can choose whether or not to kiss grandma, or they can decide whether or not, like we do smushy kisses at night, whether or not they can do that, number one. And number two is I try to set them up for what a good ethical teacher and coach and somebody in a position of authority, what kind of relationship that they'll have. So to tell the child that a good coach, an ethical coach, will never text just you individually. A good coach, an ethical coach, will never close the door. You will always be in observable and interruptible distance with that coach. Ethical or romantic and sexual relationships are unethical. You should never see them. You shouldn't. They shouldn't be a. It should not be an issue. And you should report that to an adult immediately, whether it's you or somebody else. So it's those kinds of things that you can talk to particularly young kids without having sort of a birds and the bees conversation.
Right,
you want to be able to talk to them about what are appropriate boundaries for somebody in this position of authority.
Nancy, those are really good tips, because you make a very good point. You can start young to let these kids know they have the power to say no, and they have the power to report. That's an important thing. Hopefully those children will be better off for it down the line. Nancy Hogshead-Makar, thank you so much for joining us. Your voice is important in this conversation.
One more thing is, if somebody does have an issue, they need to call the U.S. Center for Safe Sport. You can go on to safesport.org, and they have a way to report abuse violations, whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual abuse.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that.